Hello, friends and neighbors. Once again, welcome to the Gifts for Glory podcast, where we celebrate and promote men and women of God that use their gifts, passions, desires, and talents to honor and glorify God. We are just 3 weeks away. 3 weeks! That's a fortnight plus a week away from PureFest. You've heard me talk about it, but maybe you don't know a whole lot about it. Maybe you don't know for sure what PureFest is all about. PureFest is a festival where acts from around the country come to perform on our platform and showcase their gifts, talents, and passions. We have 4 teams from here in the Chicagoland area, including Well-Versed Comedy, Matrimony, and from Concordia University in Chicago, we have their 2 teams, Decapolis, which is their theater ministry, and the Unprofessionals, which is their improv squad. Then, going a little bit further out, we have Alan Atwood from Morningstar Productions in Milwaukee. From Tennessee, we have 2 teams coming from Tennessee, Austin and Led Presents out of Knoxville, and then further south, Lee University's Kingdom Players out of Cleveland, Tennessee, coming all the way up from the Chattanooga area. And we just confirmed last week, Oxymorons Comedy from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Tickets are available through Eventbrite or through our website, purefest.org, purefest.org. Tickets are $10 per person, or the whole family can get in. If you got 4 more people in your family, just $35 for everybody. That's our family ticket. We're really excited to offer that. And tickets are a suggested donation and can be paid cash at the door if you aren't able to buy through Eventbrite. But again, these are suggested donations. So if the ticket price is a factor, still come. Still come. This is for the communities, for everybody. The ticket prices that we raise, that's going to be used as a seed to start next year's event. We just want people to come and enjoy the afternoon. So mark your calendars, invite your friends, your family, the people you work with, the people you go to church with, people that maybe you know that aren't in church. Bring them out to PureFest September 28th, 1 p.m. Doors open at 12 at Crosspoint Church, Lockport, Illinois. More information at purefest.org. And now let's get to our interview with Dennis Tooley. He is a co-owner with Gutty's Comedy Club in Greenwood, Indiana. Just opened. They had their debut grand opening weekend on August 16th, and things are looking great for this clean comedy club in Indiana. They're only doing clean comedy, none of the stuff you might see at other stages. They're doing family friendly. They want the kids, the families, everybody to come and just enjoy clean comedy. We talk about Gutty's, the mission, and how it came to be. So enjoy my interview right now with Dennis Tooley, co-owner of Gutty's Comedy Club. Dennis Tooley is a comedian, he's a motivational humorist, and all-around great guy, and a co-member of the Fat Club, even though we don't talk about Fat Club, because, hey, that's the first rule of Fat Club, you don't talk about it. So now here is our interview with Dennis Tooley of Gutty's Comedy Club on the Gifts of Glory podcast. We're now joined by Dennis Tooley. He is the co-owner of Gutty's Comedy Club in Greenwood, Indiana. He's also a comedian. According to his Facebook profile, he's also an ordained minister. And he just told me before we recorded he's also just an overweight old guy. So he and I have a few things in common. So Dennis, welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate it, Dave. And I thought that fat thing was just between the two of us. But thanks for outing me in front of God and the entire country. I appreciate it. Okay, well, I do apologize. I was thinking that we had a brotherhood thing here, and you know, if I cross the line, we can end the podcast now. Or do you want? Are you good to continue? Dave, you know the rules of Fat Club is we don't talk about Fat Club. That's the rules. If I need to take your fat card away, I'm going to have to get some help. But you know, I'm just. Keep Fat Club quiet. That's all I'm saying, man. Absolutely. I will do a lot better job. But if you do have to take my Fat Club card, at least keep my frequent flyer miles for Golden Corral. Can I keep those? Well, how many do you have? I might just roll those in with mine, and we'll call it an even swap. That's all. That's a good idea. Well, so, I'm like 3 trips away from being able to pay for a second honeymoon, so I got to keep those. Well, I'm thinking if that's your thought of a second honeymoon, good for you. But wow, your wife's going to be disappointed. That's all I'm thinking. You know.
Well, she chose to marry me, so she knew what she was getting. So disappointment, that's not my responsibility.
She's used to it by now. Come on.
Absolutely. She didn't realize that when we said till death do us part, she was setting a goal.
Well, she started the countdown clock, like.
Yeah.
She shows up every morning with eggs and bacon and 16 different types of cake and an IV of coffee and Red Bull. I don't know. Maybe that's just my dream. I don't know.
Well, maybe we should stop now before we start giving both of our spouses some ideas. But I did want to bring you on to the Gift Circulator podcast and talk to you about comedy, because that's something we both have in common. Looking at your Facebook profile, I saw your intro, which says, "My life purpose is to help people laugh so they can see God through me in laughter." And I thought that was beautiful, and it speaks to me. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about what got you into comedy and how you accompany that with your faith. So how did you get into doing comedy?
Well, I think it was when I was in junior high. Now they call it middle school. These kids, they keep changing the terms, and I keep losing track. But yeah, I think it was during middle school / junior high school. We had one of those quiz things where you take this little test, and then it tells you what you might be good at, and there was some kid who like, you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a lawyer. And I had the choice between garbage man or comedian, and I didn't like the smell of garbage. No, actually, it's not too far off from that, though. No, I grew up in a family that's always had humor involved, and so I've always enjoyed laughing, and I've always enjoyed when I could cause laughter in the room, and so it was kind of one of those things I just always had and always enjoyed. And then at one point, I went through my stuck on stupid years and kind of got my life straightened out with the Lord, and it was through that process that I kind of felt compelled or led to start doing motivational speaking in middle schools and high schools around the country. And I billed myself then as a motivational humorist. And, I'd go to an event, and the kids would laugh, and the teachers and everybody would laugh. And then afterwards, people would say, you're a pretty good comedian. No, I'm not a comedian, because the parameters of comedy meant that you have to be funny all of the time. And that was just way too much stress for me. I was like, no, that means I have to try hard. And I'd much rather be serious a little bit, funny a little bit, and hopefully you're just confused enough at the end of things that you go, hey, that was pretty good. But it was in an event that I was at where I was doing my motivational stuff, and they actually had a comic that was there, a guy by the name of Steve Rizzo, fantastic comedian, been in the business for years. In fact, he may be retired by now because he had that much success. He could retire, and maybe he could buy me a boat so I could retire. I don't know. But he made a statement to me that what I was doing was comedy with content. And if I wanted to try and do comedy and get rid of some of that content and just have the fun, I should let him know. And that's really kind of how I backed into doing comedy.
Wow. So he's saying that you were too serious to be a comedian.
Well, he was just like, when you're being serious, really not all that funny, and it's kind of a waste of time to not be funny when you can be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, one of the things that I had already learned when I was doing the motivational speaking stuff as a motivational humorist was that I had seen the power of laughter. How in basic communication, if you can engage the intellect of the mind and get people thinking, and you can engage the emotion of the heart, then you can move people. People will be moved if you can engage both the intellect and the emotion. And as a speaker, I had learned how to evoke emotion, and so I used to joke sometimes with my wife. I'd come home after doing an event, and she'd ask, how'd it go? And I'd say, well, I made them cry, I made them laugh, I made them write bad checks. But it was in kind of in one of those epiphany moments when I realized that, yes, bringing people to tears is a very powerful connection, but leaving people raw is not a very helpful tool. Right. And so, that's when I started leaning very heavily towards the laughter, towards the joyful side of emotion. And then, I saw Monsters, Inc. and the theologians that wrote the script for Monsters, Inc. Man, those guys were brilliant. They saw what was there, that God was saying there's so much power in laughter, and they kind of pulled it out and showed it to the world. And that was another moment where I was just, wow, when you realize there's that much power in laughter, that when God has given us this gift to be able to go places and help people see the funny, find the funny, and enjoy the laughs, that's just an amazing gift that He's given to some of us. And so I don't want to waste that. If I've been entrusted with that kind of expectation of, hey, I want you to go share the opportunity for people to laugh. To me, that's the highest calling as far as I'm concerned. Now, I have 4 brothers, and they're all in the ministry, and they're doing serious ministry things, and I probably could be a minister like them still if it wasn't for all those people. But yeah. But no, it's just, to me, my brothers, they're like, you got to have a servant's heart, and you've got to go serve the people and all. And I'm like, yeah, that's why God called you to do that. And He created me this weird, really twisted, mentally deranged mind that He gave to me, and said, I'm going to use this to help people see that there's laughter, and there's things you can laugh at in everything. And so I'm going to unleash that so you can go out and unleash the power of laughter. And so that's really where my heart is, in sharing that gift of laughter,
Absolutely. And one of my favorite stand-ups, I'm sure you've heard of him, Michael Jr., he gave an interview where he said that laughter is the tangible evidence of hope. And that has stuck with me because like you're saying, you're sharing this gift of laughter with folks, and you don't know who or where they are in their life. They come and they laugh. First thing that I found is when you come and get people who don't know each other to laugh together, they suddenly bonded. None of them feel alone anymore because they've admitted that they have something in common with other people. And I think that community, that's a beautiful gift that God gives us, is that ability to laugh. And for me, it's just an incredible, incredible gift and a blessing. And it's an incredible ministry, as much as, from the pulpit or serving in the field of missions. Getting people to laugh and find that hope, I think, is as impactful a ministry as anything.
Well, I keep telling my mom and dad that, but they're always, why can't you be as spiritual as Randy? Because I had to choose between being spiritual and being beautiful, and since Randy's ugly, he can be spiritual. And, I don't know if my mom and dad feel the same way, though. I'm not sure.
So it is so a comedy between running Gutties and the different things you're involved with. Is that your primary living, or do you have the typical day job? What's it look like for you?
Hey! Watch your language. We don't use language like that. That's just language we don't use, people. No, I mean. My business partner Steve, he has one of those 4-letter words, one of those JOBS thing. That's a 4-letter word. People don't use it. That's not fair to anybody. But no, I pretty much my life is wrapped up in. Well, right now I'm helping my buddy Steve get his dream of Gutty's Comedy Club. Gutty's is a dream that he had, and he actually got it started back in 2003 when he was living up on the north side of Chicago, and he would get things rolling, and then the enemy would come and try to knock him down, and so he kind of went through this pattern of he'd get things rolling, and then he'd kind of have to step back and put it on the shelf for a little bit. Well, not too long ago, he moved down here to the Indianapolis area, over in Plainfield. In fact, his address, if you're wanting to go visit and have dinner with him, no, I'm just kidding. But his wife would just love it if I had sent a whole bunch of people over there. Hey, it's a flash mob, and we're supposed to get free pizza. Is that right? Anyway, when he moved here, I had known Steve. We had done some comedy shows together, and had laughed and had a bunch of fun together. And then I found out he moved to Plainfield, which is 25, 30 minutes from where I am. And I said, let's have coffee. And so I asked him, I said, what's going on with your dream? Because as strong as I feel about the fact that God gives us laughter for a strong purpose, I also believe that God gives us dreams because he wants to see them fulfilled through us. And so I said to Steve, what's going on with Gutty's? And we had kind of a long conversation, and we developed this plan to see it come to reality. And so here we are, 3 weeks in to a new venture of running a clean, family-friendly comedy club. And so, yeah, that's been taking a lot of my time, but I still do a lot of events around, traveling around the country. And I have multiple sclerosis, and so I do a lot of events for different groups for, MS awareness and trying to raise money for research for MS. And so, I do a lot of events like that, but then I also do a variety of comedy events for, I think I just did an event for a group up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that are I think they're an extension of the Special Olympics, but it's like a dance competition, kind of like the Dancing with the Stars, only this was Dancing with the Olympians from the Special Olympics. And it was really an amazing event to see because, they had, they've gone to ballroom dancing classes and everything, and they're enjoying and loving it. And just to watch the joy on their face as they danced around the floor, and it was just a blast. So, being able to do things like that, I think having one of those jobs, boy, that's just hard to say. Even having one of those would kind of interfere with all the fun I get to have in getting around the country and helping find the laughter and the joy that's out there, and just having a blast doing it.
So you have the MS, Is it well managed, or how are you doing with that?
Well, MS, it's one of those, for those of you who don't know what MS is, basically your immune system runs on overdrive. And when it doesn't have any germs or any disease or anything like that to attack, it looks around and it sees the coating on the nerves in the brain and in the stem cell and or in your spine, and it looks at all of the coating and says, oh, that must not be good, and so it attacks that coating around the nerves. And when it breaks down the coating, it causes things to short circuit and causes issues, and so all of the treatments out there are really designed to try and slow the progression of the disease. There is no cure. They haven't found a cure. They really haven't found any way to have a profound impact on the progression of the disease, although they're closer now than they ever have been. And you try to manage and keep the monster at bay. And that's really, that's the thing you got to deal with. And then you just have to kind of take the symptoms that come, and the fact that because it's attacking the brain in different places, there's no one person with MS that's exactly like anybody else. And so, I hesitate sometimes to talk about the symptoms that I deal with, because then somebody listening is going to think, oh, well, my aunt has MS. She must have the same problems. And then when she doesn't, people, well, I don't think you have MS. Yeah, she has MS. She just doesn't, her monster isn't attacking her brain in the same spots my monster is. And so there's complete difference in the symptoms and all of that. But yeah, it's a process where, I have moments where my legs get real spongy and they, basically they just disappear. And, that's always fun when it comes on unexpectedly. And, especially if you're up doing a show, in the middle of your show, you just fall to the floor and they're not sure if they should laugh or not, because, it did look funny. But then when you don't bounce right back up, ta-da! They're like, okay, that maybe he actually is hurt, So that's, I got to be prepared for those things. And I will now take questions from the floor. Any questions? I don't know. But when stuff like that happens, there's from time to time, I've got a glitch in the brain that just causes my eyes to stop communicating with the rest of the brain. And so I go blind. And when those things come around, you have to make a choice of, I'm going to panic and I'm going to freak out and I'm going to complain and cry and moan, or I'm going to step back and say, you know what? God is still large and in charge, and he's got this. And so if he thinks that I'm capable of walking through this trial, I know that he's going to see me through it one way or another. And so I kind of look at everything that comes to me with MS. I look at it as a speed bump on the road of life. It may slow me down, but it's not going to stop me. And so I keep moving forward. And I've done shows where, when my sight was out, I at one time a while back, I had an event up near Green Bay, Wisconsin that I had to go to, and so my wife was not real happy that I said, no, I'm going. I made the commitment to these people. I'm going to show up for this. It was a weekend men's retreat, and I'm like, oh, I'm going. And so. She drops me off at the airport, and I had somebody from the airport, the Sky Hop, whatever they call those guys, they helped get me through to get on my plane, and I flew out there blind, and I did the show while I was blind, and there were times that people would be like, "Wow, that's amazing," and I'm like, "No, that's not amazing. What's amazing is the fact that God gives me the strength and the ability to keep moving forward in spite of the little things that this monster called multiple sclerosis is trying to attack me and slow me down. God keeps blessing me in ways that allows me to move forward and to fulfill His purpose.
Wow.
And so, in those moments, you just keep looking for the funny. You see what I did there? I went blind, and now I'm looking. See, that's never mind.
I picked up what you're putting down.
I have learned a couple of things while I've been blind. I found out that there is Braille on the side of the highway, so I can still drive.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
And it's a nice steady rumble.
You get over on the one side. That's Braille for, hey, you're about to run off the road.
Exactly.
You get over on the other side, it's a little bit more. That's Braille for, hey, you're about to run head on into that truck. What, are you blind? Yes, thanks for noticing. I appreciate it. But yeah.
And you can still use the drive-up ATMs because they've always had Braille on the keypad.
If they're going to have it there, I'm definitely going to use them. In fact, if I can borrow your card, it'd probably work a little better than when I go up and do mine now.
Absolutely. One of the beautiful things about this story that you're sharing is that the MS does not define you. You've defined it. You've boxed it into a monster as opposed to something that, that's defining who you are. And I think that that's a wonderful mindset to look at it as what it is. It's an enemy. It's a monster that's attacking you and is not what makes Dennis. I think that's just a beautiful perspective.
Yeah, there's a group on Facebook that I frequent every once in a while just to kind of go in and try to encourage other people that have MS and that. But the name of the group is I Have MS. MS does not have me. Mm. And that's kind of that general philosophy of, okay, I've been diagnosed with a disease. I didn't get up one day and say, you know what, I think I want to get that. I'm going to go out and I'm going to shop for it. I think they have a special going on at Walmart right now, 2 for the price of 1. You can get 2 helpings of MS for the price of 1. That's a pretty good deal. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go ahead and sign up and I'm going to get that. No, nobody does that. But when you realize, okay, this is happening, whether I chose it or not, but I was me long before this diagnosis. And I'm going to be me long after this body is rolled over and becomes dust again. So I'm not going to let it think it has that much power to define who I am and where I'm going and what I'm doing, because I serve a God who's already defined all of that for me.
Mm. That's beautiful. And that's a great encouragement to anybody, whether it's multiple sclerosis, whether it's even cancer or any kind of thing that's attacking the physical body. It's not going to be able to attack the spirit, and it's not going to redefine what God's already defined. So I just hope anybody listening that is going through that or knows somebody going through those sort of things, that they can take that encouragement that such a thing does not define you. And God has already defined you, and He's found you worthy of dying for. And who are we to argue with that concept? So you're able to still travel and do different comedy shows. Are you strictly stand-up, or do you have experience doing other forms of comedy?
Yeah, primarily I'm a stand-up comedian, but I've done some work in some improv troupes. Spent a little time with Point of View Comedy, which was an improv troupe here in central Indiana, traveling around doing some improv stuff. In fact, it's one of the things when we opened Gutty's Comedy Club, we started right away. We started Gutty's Improv Aesthetics, which is the improv arm of the comedy club, and we've got Gutty's Sketchpad, which we're getting ready to roll out here soon, and inviting people to come be a part of a sketch comedy troupe that will, write and produce sketch, and then we'll perform them live here at the club. But then we'll also, when we start performing them live, then we'll get into our studio here at the club and video everything and get it out for on that worldwide web of the internets. We'll go ahead and we'll try and get them out there, and so people in the Netherlands can see what we're going on, and that whole interweb thing. That's a pretty cool thing for an old guy like me to be able to take advantage of some of that stuff. So.
Absolutely.
If someday soon you're looking at, you're doing a search on the interwebs for something serious, and all of a sudden you see this old fat dude from Indiana doing some crazy stuff, you'll be like, wow, I think I heard that fat guy on Dave's really cool, deeply spiritual podcast. And I'm sorry for ruining everything for your audience going forward. I'm really sorry. No, I'm not. I'm not really sorry because
the only concern I had was we went back to talking about Fat Club, and I was just worried if this is a portion that I could leave, or if we need to trim some of this out. Kind of trim the fat.
That's language. That's language that'll get you in trouble right away. You start talking about trimming, losing, any of that. No. It's okay to get more and, to meet up, to gain more. That's perfectly fine. You start losing or giving stuff away or trimming fat, then all of a sudden, what are you, a health freak? Come on. Stop it. I'm telling my mom.
Well, I tell people that I can't lose weight because God always wanted me to be the bigger man.
Well, that's very, very spiritual of you, see. I tell people it's like this. When God created the earth, he created so much fat. And so when somebody starts losing some, then in order to keep the world in balance, I have to gain some. Right. And I'm doing it for the world, people. I'm trying to keep the world in balance. That's why I eat the way I do. It's for their good, not mine. They need to be thankful. And they should send me ribs. Absolutely.
Amen to that.
And ice cream.
And here's the thing, we keep hearing this research on cow flatulence is hurting the environment. So I'm doing my part by eating the cow so that we cut down on those emissions.
Put it to an end. That's all I'm saying. Eat up. It'll save the universe. You are a hero. Young man, you are a hero.
Awesome. So we are, for those tuning in and that haven't looked at the show notes, we're talking with Dennis Tooley. He's one of the co-owners of Gutty's Comedy Club in Greenwood, Indiana. Gutty's has been around since 2003, but just this year they opened up an actual physical location. So talk to us a little bit about how the location came about, how you chose it, and the process of opening up your own club.
Well, that's we've been doing shows kind of in other venues for the last couple of years here in the central Indiana area, and usually we get going, really building a good crowd, and then the owners come back from vacation and find out that we've been doing shows there. And then they run us off. So we knew that eventually we were going to have to find our own place. And this particular location came up. it has been a number of things, but most recently there was a theater group doing some cabaret shows here, and they were trying to go bigger, and they were trying to get to where they could do dinner theater stuff and that. So they had to find a much bigger facility. And when we walked through here, when the cabaret group was here, my buddy Steve, the owner, the head owner of the Gutty's Comedy Club, kind of looked at me and he said, "Yeah, this needs to be Gutty's." And I said, "Well, there's just one small problem. This guy over here is actually trying to do shows here, and we might be a little bit of a distraction if we come in and do comedy shows in the middle of their cabaret thing, Mm-hmm. But it wasn't long after that the word came out that they were actually relocating and moving out. So Steve looks at me and he says, "Hey, it looks like maybe God moved out the obstacle so that we could go set up Gutty's where I told you we needed to be." And so we went through the process and negotiated a deal here and signed a lease and moved in the 1st of August. And here we are. And now we are kind of seeing Steve's dream of Gutty's Comedy Club being a reality, but we're also getting to experience that extreme stretching of faith, because when we started Gutty's Comedy Club, I said to Steve, "Steve, you can do things however you want, but I'm not going into debt to do this. Quite frankly, my faith is strong enough to say if God is in this, He's going to provide in ways that we may not even know." And so we have really done everything we can to not go into debt, and so here we are, almost 1 month in, and all of a sudden that's another 4-letter word that I don't like to say much. BILLS. Oh, that's 5, I guess, 5 letters. So it's worse. I don't know. Maybe that's worse to have that one. I don't know. But when those things all start showing up, and then we start to say, "Okay, Lord, you're faithful." But we need to see the evidence of that faithfulness in order for us to be faithful to the landlord and to the electric company and all those people that are sending us these nasty bills, which is just hate mail as far as I'm concerned. And the government needs to do something about the hate mail problem we have. That's just my favorite way.
And we'll be back with more of our interview with Dennis Tooley, co-owner of Gutty's Comedy Club, located in Greenwood, Indiana. He runs alongside of Steve Rivera. Be sure to follow them on all the socials and keep an eye out for all the amazing happenings going on at Gutty's Comedy Club. Take the drive down. If you're in the Chicagoland area, it's only about 3 hours. Or if you're unable to make the trip, consider supporting them through Patreon. You can visit Gutty's Comedy Club for more information. Now, we'll get back to more of our conversation with Dennis in just a moment. But first, the holiday season. Yes, the holiday season is quickly approaching. You got end-of-year functions, Christmas and holiday parties, New Year parties. So many events and so many ways to go with your entertainment for those parties. So let me suggest Well-Versed Comedy. We're clean, professional, funny, and we make memories for your guests. It's going to be a great night when you bring us out to your event. We are a featured act at PureFest, and we're also producing our own show at Second City later this month in September. And we want to come to your event with that same high energy, creative, audience-driven comedy that will leave your group laughing for days. Email us at improv@wellversedcomedy.com, improv@wellversedcomedy.com, or find us on social media at wellversedcmdy. That's at wellversedcmdy. Back with more of the Gifts of Glory podcast in just a moment, right here where we celebrate and promote men and women of God using their gifts, talents, passions, and desires for His glory.
But it's a lot of fun to have your own comedy club. It's a blast to be able to talk with comics and say, hey, let's see what we can work out to have you roll through, and to try and do it in a way that, comics understand that we aren't rolling in the dough, but at the same time, we want to bless them for their efforts, in a way that, we're not saying, hey, this should be your ministry. You should come for free and pay us, because that's your ministry, right? So in the process of doing all of that, I would ask your listeners, in fact, anyone who believes in the power of prayer, to just bathe Gutty's Comedy Club in prayer, that the resources and the means for us to continue doing what we're doing roll through in his timing, in his perfect plan, so that we can be faithful and reach an audience that needs to hear laughter in a way that is still pleasing and glorifying to God. You don't have to worry when you show up at our place if somebody's going to be dropping language that you don't want to hear. They're not going to be talking about body parts or activities that you don't want to hear. It is family-friendly, good, wholesome laughter that is top shelf comedy, and so if we can continue to make everything roll and the resources are in place, it is going to be a great place. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Now, it doesn't mean that Steve's not going to have an ulcer but about the end of every month when he has to write checks, but I know God's large and in charge, and so the beautiful thing is He's God and I'm not, and everybody's happy about it.
Yeah, and I am seeing slowly but surely a trend where more and more people are looking for what you're offering, something clean that people can do together, that's not altogether expensive, because comedy is going so hard the other way right now, and it's so repetitive that when you do something that's clean, that's pure, that everyone can laugh together without checking to make sure it's okay to laugh, that market is starting to develop, and I think you guys have come in at the right time, and obviously God's timing for this to happen. And it may not be always easy and smooth sailing, but I believe that God's going to continue to provide, because I think that this is needed, and I think that there's a hunger for it.
I fully agree with that. Here's how God operates. We put the word out that we were going to open this club. We didn't spend a lot of time trying to find out what all was happening in Greenwood, Indiana, that is going to happen about the time that we're planning on opening the club. But we find out through people just mentioning things to us about, hey, this is probably a pretty good time for you to open that club, because the city of Greenwood is doing all these upgrades and all of these really great things for the Main Street corridor. We are less than a quarter of a mile south of Main Street on Madison Avenue in Greenwood. And they're putting all this effort into bringing people into Greenwood and to make all these improvements. And so we're like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Then all of a sudden, we're getting closer to grand opening, and the Fox television affiliate, Fox 59, calls and says, hey, we're doing our morning news program in Greenwood at the Greenwood Amphitheater to talk about all the stuff that's going on in Greenwood, and we'd like for you guys to come be a part of that news coverage, because you guys are doing something that's part of the new things coming into Greenwood. So we're on Fox 59 in the morning, and we come back over to the club because we had some touch-up things that we needed to do because we were supposed to open that night. And the phone rings again, and it's a reporter from the NBC affiliate, Channel 13, asking if he can come by because he saw a press release and he saw something about us being on Fox 59. He's intrigued by this whole clean comedy concept, wanted to come over and do a story on it. So he rolls through and does another TV show or another TV interview with us, and it plays that night on the NBC affiliate here. And then Saturday morning, they replay that whole segment again to a different crowd of people who weren't watching on Friday night, and now they're up on Saturday morning watching. And so, it was just the hand of God knowing what was going on around us and why he was putting us here in this place for this time. And so, there are those moments where you kind of react and you say, okay, Lord, I have faith. Now I need you to help my unbelief. Mm-hmm. I believe, but now I need you to help my unbelief. And God comes along and says, hey, you're still my kid, and I'm still going to take care of you. I got this.
Yeah. And I can definitely sympathize and understand where you're coming from. I don't know if you've heard about PureFest that we're doing here in the Chicagoland area, but that's pretty much me and my wife putting that on, and it's a festival. We're bringing in teams from all over the country, and just doing all the coordination and trying to fund advertising and everything. It's like, God, we could really use some money, or we could really use this break, or we could use this. And like you said, he's always there like, okay, you're still my kid. I've got this covered. I didn't give you this vision so that you could do it by yourself. And I didn't give you this vision so that I could drop you on your face. I gave you this because I want it to happen. So I completely understand the roller coaster that it is, but also just the beauty of seeing God at work and providing for it. And it's just really, really exciting to see it. You've got some really great comedians lined up to come out. Just looking at your schedule, a couple of people that I've been watching, like Andy Beningo, he's coming up. Let's see, Leslie Norris Townsend, you got coming in. Robert G. Lee. Just a nice rotation. Not only that, but you also have local comics. So how did you connect with the comics you're bringing in, and who are you looking forward to bringing in the future?
So far, every one of the comics that have been here or are coming in within the first 3 months of us being open, they're all people that I have known for a while. I've worked with in the past, and having that connection with a lot of those people. And having them know, they've heard both me and Steve talk about the vision of what we're trying to do, and they want to do what they can to help. Like you mentioned, Robert G. Lee is a fantastic comic that lives out on the left coast, in the West Coast, and he and I, he was like, hey, that's really cool what you're doing. And I'd like to, I hope I can come through sometime. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. Come to find out, Robert G. grew up in Indiana, not too far from where we are. And so he's like, hey, the next time I roll through to come home to see my folks and to be there for family issues, I'll let you know. And that's kind of just, everything fell into place. And, he's doing us a huge solid to come in and do the shows while he's here. And he's not charging me an arm and a leg. He's only taking my pinky toe and one of my thumbs. And that's really not a bad deal.
No, not at all.
As I was kind of hoping he'd take my left leg, since it's been giving me a lot of trouble lately. But no, he didn't want it. He was like, that's like buying a '72 Pinto. I don't need that. But Andy Beningo, I actually met Andy a few years back at one of Leslie Norris's Clean Comedy Challenge events that she was doing, and I just got to be. Andy's one of those guys who you hang out with him for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then you want to be his friend for the rest of your life because he's that kind of contagious fun, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent him a note and just said, "Hey, Andy, we're doing this, and you tell me what's it going to take for me to get you to roll down here." He said, "Well, you tell me when you need me to come." And so I hit him up with a couple of dates, and he said, "Well, the first one I can't do, but the second one is wide open. Let's put it into place." And you know, so there again, there are those places where I know God is putting things together, because you know, Andy is traveling all over the country, and then when he did the Dry Bar comedy special out there in Provo, Utah, you know, his recognition kind of jumped through the ceiling, and I know he could have said, "Well, let me reschedule things," but no, he's like, "No, you're on my schedule. I'm doing it, and regardless of what has happened with my popularity or anything." So it's evidence like that we know we're on the right track and we're trying to make things work. So, I've got a lot of friends that I'm still trying to find out when I can make them connect and get through. You know, we're trying to bring in Cleto. We're trying to bring Bob Smiley. We're actually, one of the guys that we've kind of met since we opened Gutty's, a guy by the name of Hoss Ridgway, he's done a lot of comedy stuff, at youth events and youth camps and that kind of stuff. And he's good friends with Bob Smiley. And so when I said something about, hey, we're trying to get Bob to come through, well, Hoss actually is a pastor of a church in the area now. And he's like, well, let's work something out so we can bring Bob in together. You know, so we've got guys that we're working diligently to try and line up some top level talent, and then we'll be we're trying to take some of those names that I've thrown out are all people that a lot of your listeners might recognize because they're part of the Christian Comedy Association. Mm-hmm. But I'm also trying to bring in I'm friends with Dennis Regan, who is a fantastic comic who works clean. And so, we're trying to bring in some of those top level talents that it's just a matter of trying to work it out so that it makes good business sense for them and for us to make it happen, And so, if you got somebody that's listening that's, saying, hey, I'd like to invest in this comedy club because I have all this extra cash just laying around, have them give me a call because we've got some potential things that are rolling down that they could jump in and be part of. We'd love to have them come along and be part of the team.
Awesome. And it's just looking at the lineup for the next couple of months. People need to visit Gutty'sComedyClub.com, especially if you're in the Chicagoland area. It's not that bad of a drive to go down to Indianapolis, spend the day, and then go check out a great show. Andy Beningo is coming up on the 6th and 7th of September. So that as we air this next Wednesday, or as it's being aired today, Wednesday, that's this weekend is Andy Beningo, and then you've got Robert G. Lee coming up the first weekend of October. Leslie Norris Townsend is the second weekend of October. And a lot of stuff going on in between, including the Monday night improv workshops that you have going on. So you've got a lot of great things going on down there.
Yeah, and if you got comics that are in the area or somebody that says hey, we'd like to try out a little comedy, every Sunday night we have an open mic we call a Laugh Sabbath. The Laugh Sabbath open mic every Sunday night. Gives comics an opportunity to get up and try out some of their clean material and polish that up and get ready for for a full set for whether features or headline or whatever they're trying to get to. So we do that every Sunday night. So there's all kinds of fun, crazy stuff going on. So if you're in the area, definitely look us up, Gutty'sComedyClub.com, and spin through and have some fun with us. Share a laugh or two with us,
Outstanding. Now, I told you before we went on the air that I was going to challenge you at the end of the interview with our interrogation. Got 7 questions that most are pretty simple, but a couple might be a little bit hard. But we just want to get to know you a little bit better on the way out. So, are you ready for your interrogation?
You fire away.
All right. First question, favorite stand-up comedy?
I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth, officer. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Favorite stand-up
I was having flashbacks all of a sudden. I was like, oh! No, okay. Fire away.
All right, Dennis, what's your favorite stand-up, or who's your favorite stand-up all time?
Favorite stand-up of all time? Probably a draw between Bill Cosby before he went off the rails and did stupid stuff. His comedy is still brilliant, even though his behavior is reprehensible. Mm-hmm. So Bill Cosby would be there, or my other all-time favorite would be Sinbad. Oh,
nice. All right, favorite moment in your personal comedy career?
Getting to do a show at Walter Reed Hospital for wounded soldiers.
Nice.
By far the most blessing and moving experience that I've had the opportunity and the challenge to be part of.
Very nice. So far, what's been the hardest show or situation that you've been in comedy?
Well, I got a call from this guy. I think he's in the Chicagoland area. He's got a podcast. And he's like, I'm going to ask you all these questions at the end of the podcast. And I didn't know what to expect. And that was a little awkward. And no, I'm just making this up as I go along here. It's improv comedy. People, come on. Actually, the kind of the toughest thing, or the roughest spot in my comedy career, actually almost parallels with me doing shows at Walter Reed. I was asked to come down and do a show as part of a general's ball for the 101st Airborne down in Kentucky. They had just come back from Afghanistan, and they were having this big gala thing. And so they hired me to come down and do some comedy. And again, I was honored. I was like, this is just so amazing, God. Thanks for this opportunity. This is so cool. And the reality was, nobody came wanting to listen to even a comic. Nobody came that wanted to dance. Nobody came to do all the stuff they do at the ball. They wanted to just unwind and kick back with their wives and just have a great night. And so the drinking had started, early, and that's where they were all pretty much focused. And so, I get up to do my set, and about 3 minutes into my set, one of the wives of one of the soldiers comes up and asks if she could borrow the mic. Well, when you're in an audience like that, you're really because I wasn't carrying any weapons. I wasn't going to say no, So I was like, okay. And she unplugged the mic and walked away with the mic. Oh. And I was kind of like, okay, first of all, that mic, that's not mine. That belongs to the DJ who's going to be playing music here in a little bit. He's probably going to need that back. I don't know, And so they gave me another mic, and immediately the audience was like, they just turned on me quickly, and I was like, okay, I don't know what to do right here. I have been in a lot of clubs where I have dealt with drunk people. I have worked in corporate events where, there have been two guys that worked together in this company, and they got a little bit drunk, and they decided they wanted to fight during my set. But none of them really threw me off of my game as much as the moment when you have this huge group of soldiers who have just come back from Afghanistan, and they're all kind of almost chanting, shut up, let us have our fun. And I'm kind of like, and that's my time, ladies and gentlemen. God bless. Have a great night. And, oh man. I tried to give him back the check, and the lieutenant colonel that had hired me, basically he apologized and said, I really feel bad. And I'm like, well, I understand these guys just came back and this wasn't what they wanted. And even if there is a general saying, you're going to do this, that's an order, they still didn't want it. So I said, I understand that. I just feel bad because you guys hired me to do a show and I really didn't do a show. And he's like, well, it's our fault, and you go ahead and keep the money. I was like, oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But then for the rest of the time home, I'm thinking, okay, what group should I give this money to? Because I don't feel like I earned the paycheck that day. So
right.
I was able to step back and make a contribution to a Wounded Warrior project. So
nice. And you can also think of it, as coming from the military, which means it's tax money. So you're just consider a rebate check.
Well, I don't know if in order to get another rebate check, I have to worry about getting pummeled by several hundred very well-built, machined Army guys. I don't want a refund.
I hear you. All right. Question number 4. Getting serious. Biggest regret in life?
Biggest regret in life. I spent too many years stuck on stupid, where I was raised in a Christian home, but I walked away from all of that and kind of did the proverbial prodigal son activities, and got spent too much time burning my brain out on drugs and like I said, just living stuck on stupid. But I regret losing all of that time. I don't regret the lessons I had to learn through that and the lessons that God taught me through that, but just the loss of time where I could have been doing more that benefited others in that time frame instead of being so stuck on selfishness and stuck on being so consumed with my own insanity.
All right, question number 5. If you could pick a dream lineup with you and 3 other comedians to share a show with, who would those 3 be?
I'll be honest. I always thought it would be so much fun to do a show that included Tim Conway. And now that he's gone, that I know that'll never happen. He was one of those guys I always wanted to meet and always wanted to do a show with, and never was able to. I always dreamt of being on the Johnny Carson show, not because I want to be famous like that, but just to work in the presence of the brilliant mind that Johnny Carson had for comedy. So I guess maybe Tim Conway, Johnny Carson, and then I still there's 2 guys I want to do a show with. Sinbad is one of them, and Dennis Regan. And it's funny because people are listening. Dennis Regan, doesn't he mean Brian Regan? Well, Brian is Dennis's brother, and Brian probably is known a little bit more across the television and those things. But in my estimation, Dennis is just as funny, if not funnier, and just as clever. And he is just a fantastic person that I have known for a while, but I have not had the privilege of actually doing a show with him. And so if I could put together a show and I could have Dennis Regan, Sinbad, Johnny Carson, and Tim Conway, and me, then I can be okay. I don't have to go back to Golden Corral anymore because I have been to him.
There you go. Awesome. All right, question number 6. What's your biggest fear right now?
I'll be honest. My biggest fear is that my health happens, and the people that are around me, they understand that. But my biggest fear is that I'm going to let people down because of this monster that takes its toll from time to time, and I don't have anything to say about it. Mm-hmm. And, I worry about, we jumped into this comedy club, and I'm loving and just having a blast working with my buddy Steve Rivera. You ever get the chance to meet Steve? He's one of the most creative, great minds of comedy. He's brilliant he as a graphic artist, and he's got talents that, I think God skipped like a whole generation of people just so he could give it all to Steve sometimes. And it's just he's a blast to work with. But in the middle of it, just having those moments where my health starts to knock me sideways, I'm afraid I'm going to let him down. And if I let him down, and by the nature of that, I'm afraid I'm going to let people down that are coming in that really desperately need to have a place where they can just laugh and feel free to laugh. And my fear is if I'm not able to accomplish what I need to accomplish, then I'm going to be letting those people down. I've my constant thing is I'm afraid I'm going to let my wife down. I'm afraid I'm going to let my son down. And that's the fear that just kind of gnaws at me. And I do my best to deal with it and keep it at bay, but that's the one that gnaws at me the most is I'm afraid I'm going to let people down.
Totally understand that. And final question, the interrogation is, what's the most exciting thing that's going to happen at Gutty's that you're looking forward to?
Most exciting thing that I'm looking forward to. Well, one of them, there's this guy, he's up in the Chicagoland area. He's got this really cool podcast, and we're trying to work out the details to see if we can get him to come down and do a set. What's his name? David, I forget. Anyway, that might be up there. I don't know. No, actually, in all honesty, we've got some plans to try and work out deals where we can host Leslie Norris to come in with her crew and do a clean comedy challenge here at the club. We've got plans to try and work with, whether it's working with Hoss Ridgway and his church or other churches here in the Indianapolis area, to bring in guys that we know, that Steve and I know we've known for a while, but we also know that Gutty's Comedy Club isn't a big enough venue to bring them in. So we're trying to, we've got plans to coordinate and work with some of the larger churches or larger venues so we can bring in a Michael Jr. So we can, we can tap on a Johnny W. or some of those guys to see if we can get them to spin through the area, and we can help coordinate and sponsor bringing them in, and just so that we can reach a broader audience and share this powerful gift of laughter,
Absolutely. All right. Well, Dennis, you made it through. That was it. I'm really excited for you and for what God is going to do through Gutty's, because it just, as I'm listening to you talk, I hear just how he's lining up all the dominoes, and maybe that's not the greatest analogy because dominoes fall, but he's lining everything up for you. Analogies were never my strong suit, so I apologize for that.
I was thinking, maybe this is God's way of saying I need to go play dominoes, and I didn't know that His word was going to come back. I should go gamble, but maybe I could earn enough money playing dominoes to cover all the expenses. That's I don't know.
As we recorded, it is about dinner time, so maybe we should order dominoes. I think that may be the prophetic word there.
maybe that's the route he was going. I don't know.
All right. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Wish you guys, I don't want to say luck because we don't believe in luck. We believe in God and what He's able to do. So we wish you the best, and we wish you nothing but success with Gutty's and everything else that you guys are doing down in Indiana.
I appreciate it, man.
All right. So Dennis Tooley of Gutty's Comedy Club. All the links and information are in the show notes. And we thank you for listening to the Gifts for Glory podcast. We'll talk to you next week.